Scientists agree that they have yet to discover what the mind is and how the brain produces consciousness. What makes us us has always been a mystery. The question is one of the oldest, most formidable and exciting challenges that science has yet to solve. In the middle of the Arizona desert, there is a scientist who is trying to come up with the answers, to unravel just what the mind is and explain how consciousness occurs. Professor Stuart Hameroff is an anesthetist and the director of consciousness studies at the University of Arizona, Tucson.
Feel nice and relaxed? Okay. Showtime.
Professor Hameroff has been working with British physicist Sir Roger Penrose in developing a theory about consciousness which might bring us closer to an understanding of how and when near-death experiences happen.
When a patient is anesthetized, they are completely unconscious. They feel no pain, they have no awareness, and no memory. Unlike sleep, there's no dreaming, and if someone takes a knife to them, they don't feel it. So it's different than sleep. The brain is still active, there's electrical activity, but it's kind of like a motor idling. The clutch is in. The brain is telling the lungs to breathe, the brain is telling the heart to work, the brain is doing all kinds of things, but the thing that's missing is consciousness. So it's a good way of actually separating, isolating consciousness from other brain functions, which is why understanding anesthesia is a big clue to understanding consciousness.
Professor Hameroff has been studying microscopically small structures known as microtubules that are deep inside the cells that form the brain. It is at this microscopic level that he believes that the brain produces the mind.
The inside of cells, including nerve cells, are comprised of a network or forest of girders or cylindrical structures called microtubules that self-assemble to form the shape of the cell. They are also the nervous system of the cell and process information internally to organize what happens within each cell and also how cells interact with other cells. These microtubules are actually very well designed as computational devices.
Hameroff proposes that the microtubules are tiny on-board computers which organize cellular activities within the brain. He's been studying the behavior and the structure inside the microtubule itself. He believes that the microtubules act as quantum computers.
The quantum world at the level of atoms and below, for example, has some very strange properties. For example, everything can be interconnected to everything else. Particles can be in two or more places at the same time, a process called superposition. So in a quantum computer, information can be in two states at the same time.
This ability to be in two places at once, known as superposition in space-time geometry, is thought to be a fundamental property and the very fabric of the universe.
The fundamental level of the universe is so infinitesimally small that it's impossible to even imagine. But if we go down in size scale, for example, from our brains to our nerve cells, into the microtubules, and then inside the microtubule subunits to the level of atoms, and then keep going down even smaller than atoms, because atoms are mostly empty space, the space between the nucleus and the electrons, down and down and down, everything is smooth. But eventually we reach a level where there's some kind of coarseness or irregularity. This may be something like, imagine you're in an airplane looking at the surface of the ocean from 33,000 feet. The surface of the ocean looks very smooth. However, if you were in a boat on that surface, it'd be very choppy. And there's a pattern, obviously, in the waves in the surface of the ocean. Similarly, when we get down to this fundamental level of the universe, there's information, there's patterns. And that information carries conscious precursors that give rise to our complex consciousness.
It is here, at the most basic level of the universe, deep inside the brain, that Hameroff and Penrose believe consciousness occurs. Their theory is based on a well-established field of science, the laws of general relativity as discovered by Einstein. Einstein told us that everything, matter, energy, space and time, are all particular arrangements, the fabric of the universe which works on the tiniest of scales. It's at this level that consciousness may also exist, connected to the brain by quantum processes in the microtubules, inside nerve cells, which could explain how the near-death experience occurs.
When the brain stops functioning, the microtubule coherence, if you will, the pumping metabolic activity stops, and this information leaks out. It isn't lost, it isn't destroyed, because it's occurring at the fundamental level, so it just leaks out into the universe at large. But rather than dissipate and spread out, it hangs together due to another strange phenomenon called quantum entanglement or quantum coherence. So I think by this mechanism it's possible for consciousness to exist, at least temporarily, outside of the body. For example, floating above the ceiling, floating above the body, observing the resuscitation. Okay, Kai. How you doing? Open your mouth. Okay, in the recovery, surgery's all over.
Professor Stuart Hameroff's theory may have given us a glimpse of what life after death could mean, into a world we don't yet have the technology and scientific capability of fully understanding. But one thing is clear and proven. Near-death experiences have extreme effects on the people who have them, because for them, life continued after death.
The vast majority of people who have a near-death experience are profoundly changed for decades after the experience. They typically become less materialistic, less competitive, less involved with personal power, prestige, fame, much more altruistic, much more concerned with relationships and with the spiritual side of lives. We have many examples of people who change their careers, who change relationships as a result of their near-death experience.